So today, year seven, we're going to talk a little bit about problem solving in maths and some of the strategies we can use to problem solve in maths. And I'm going to take you through uh, a short presentation on problem solving, some strategies you can use and some steps you can follow. And then you're going to be given a worksheet and you'll need to have that finished for Friday. Okay. So let's start off with always read the question at least twice and take note of all the important facts. So do you have enough information to solve the problem? More than likely you will. Okay, so you just need to think about that. Second thing is then identify the solution required. What is the question actually asking you to do? So you should be able to sum that up really quickly after you've read the problem twice. Solve the problem using an appropriate strategy. Okay, so that's easy said, and I'm going to give you a few strategies for that in a minute. So pause on that one and we'll come back to that. Make sure you can communicate the solution using appropriate language and mathematical terms. So when you have the solution, if another person is reading your work, they're able to figure out what you're talking about and what strategy you've used, and your method should be clear. Okay. The next thing, support your solution with some mathematical reasoning. So when you think you've solved the problem, could it have been solved in a different or better way? Or have you verified that it is correct? So maybe check that the solution makes sense in your own head, and then reflect on the solution and make sure that whatever you've said is the answer actually answers the question. So go back to number 2 on this list, which says identify the solution, and then when you have the solution, always look back and say, does that make sense? Okay, and have I actually answered the question? Now back to part 3, which was solve the problem using an appropriate strategy. So what strategies can we use? Okay, first strategy might be to create some kind of table. So where you group numbers or see patterns. So you may have seen that in the end of semester exam where I gave you a pattern of matchsticks, and then my solution was to put it into an input-output table. So the first one had 6 matches, the second one had 11 matches, and so on. So that table helped me create a formula rather than just looking at matchsticks, which is difficult. But diagrams can help, especially in those geometry questions, area and perimeter. Didn't it help when we did that for the pool task? It was a lot easier once I walked away from the video and helped you by drawing a net diagram, and that helped a lot. So the pattern, you can use technology for looking for patterns, so perhaps calculators or maybe Excel, or in some cases when you get older you can start to use graphing calculators. But for the most part, looking for the pattern for you guys won't use technology yet. But you can look at maybe the jumps, if it's numbers, perhaps you're making the same mistake. What was that pattern? And that's a strategy you could use. Working backwards from the answer is a legitimate way of solving a problem, especially if you have reached a dead end, and maybe you can actually look at the answer and then go, okay, so this was the answer. Now, what did I do wrong? What should I have noticed? And that is a legitimate way of going back. Now, for the problems I give you, I'm not going to give you the answers. So perhaps this is not one you could use at the moment. Okay, you can eliminate any answers that are not relevant, or any bits of the problem that you don't need, and you can just focus on what is the particular part of the problem that you need to focus on. Simplifying the problem, so a lot of these problems will be long worded problems, and then they often simplify quite easily. So in algebra you simplify, so you can add like terms. That's an example of simplifying a problem. But in these word type problems, you can just simplify it down to a sentence, or you can just simplify it into just numbers, or in some cases letters. So by drawing a diagram, you've also simplified the problem. You've taken all these words and put them into numbers. So you should always it's going to be a maths problem, so it's going to be some operation in maths that you're going to have to use, so you can simplify that down into numbers. And then, of course, you can always guess and see if that answer makes sense. So guessing is a legitimate way of solving problems. If you've run out of any other ideas and you can't think of a mathematical strategy to do it, you guess, and then you can justify your guess and then check to see does that answer make sense. So maybe you could substitute it into a formula, or depending on the question, maybe it's an area question, maybe you can have a guess, and if you don't know a length of a side, you can just guess it and then see if it works, and maybe you were close, and then you guess again and get even closer. So that's a legitimate strategy. Now today I'm going to set you some problems, worksheet problems. You need to do at least one color, green, yellow, or blue. Blue is quite difficult. Some of them are quite difficult, some of them are not too bad. So complete at least one, and then we'll go through the answers to those on Friday. And the next two lessons then are going to be a mega race based on problem solving. So this is like the practice for the mega race that will start in the next lesson. So that hopefully will be a bit of fun and challenging. And let's see who does well in that, but we'll talk more about that in the next lesson. Okay, so good luck with that worksheet today. Try and write something. Come up with some solutions. There's numbers, put them down, transfer the numbers from the question onto the page, and then start working with them. Maybe create a table, a diagram, or whatever is necessary you think. And if all else fails, guess and make sure your answer makes sense. Even if it's a guess, make sure it makes sense, and maybe put a sentence to say why you think it makes sense if you've guessed. Okay, so good luck.